Noble here with a little bit of a red looking face. I've just realised that like my forehead and my actual face is quite red. I think my face has actually maybe caught the sun just a little bit. If you're not aware, we're in the UK right now and we are currently battling a heat wave. So today we in Hull, where I live, we got up to 32 degrees, which is absolutely mind blowing. It's quite hot for sort of you know, the UK, and we don't really deal with heat that well, and I don't deal with heat that well. I don't like heat when it's like too warm, as I'm sure a lot of people don't. So yeah, I've just noticed that I do look a tad bit red, and even now we're 21 degrees now, which is a bit lower, which is quite cool for night. So we have kind of like dropped by like 11 degrees from this afternoon, but it still feels like quite warm, and 21 degrees is still quite warm. And it certainly feels warm in where I live. So anyway, welcome back to another stream. Today we're back with some more in the beer garden updates, because I'm trying to keep the updates and the journey and the documentation with these live streams alive and kind of like, as regular as possible to help with the promotion of the event. And not only that, just for like something to look back on and stuff like that. So for people who haven't watched the previous streams, or people that don't follow me on social media, and people who don't have a clue what's going on, I'm putting an event on the 30th of August called In the Beer Garden, which is a like outdoor music event that's going to take place during the afternoon and then go on into the evening, an after party on the night time, which is that's obviously going to be like really, really cool, and I'm super looking forward to it. So there's been a whole journey, and I won't go too far into the detail of the journey, but I'll just kind of give you a quick rundown of how it kind of came about. And it came about, basically started from me just getting an idea and then pitching an idea to a friend who kind of like made the idea bigger, who then kind of got my brain racking to turn it into what we've turned it into now. So I do a DJ residency in a pub in Driffield called The Book. And originally there was another guy that did the DJ in there with me. And basically I was just talking to him one day and I was like, look, we should do some music outside in the beer garden of this pub. And, we should do something like pretty cool, in there. And then he mentioned about the pub across the road that has like 10 times the size bigger beer garden, and said, look, we should do something out there instead, because it's a bigger beer garden. It's owned by the same landlady. Would be really nice to do something sort of in summer, get some stuff out there when the weather's warm and the weather's nice. And that kind of blew my little mini idea of like, okay, let's DJ outside into, well, look, if there's an actual like beer garden out there, what if I brought an event to the beer garden? And then it opened up a whole like load of other questions that I had to like ask myself, and then there was questions that I had to ask other people, and there was a lot of things, I couldn't just like go, oh, we're going to put an event on. So first off, I had to think like logically, like, can I even put an event on? Do I genuinely know enough about what I'm doing to be able to put an event on? And I ticked myself off with the tick of yes, like I do have a little bit of knowledge of putting some events on. And with the idea and the type of event route I wanted to go down, I have quite a lot of knowledge in this, which was kind of like the indie acoustic with some DJs at night kind of style vibe. Now, with my youth work, I do a lot of putting events on where we put like small acoustic singers on, and we put bands on, and then sometimes we put DJs on as well. Sometimes it's just me, and then sometimes I do put another DJ on as well. So basically, I had in my mind, I've got a little bit of knowledge of doing that. Basically, I wanted to transfer that knowledge from what I've learned doing kind of like this youth job into, okay, can I actually do this? Could I do something similar, sort of outside of work that I have a little bit more rein on? So when I say like have a little bit more rein on, so like with work, I put these events on, but with the ones I do at work, there is like certain criterias and the certain guidelines that that we need to meet. So first of all is the age. So when I put these events on, they're youth events. They're aimed at like, young up and coming youth bands, youth singers, that need like performance opportunities. Doing it outside of work didn't necessarily mean that I was restricted to an age. I could put like a 32-year-old singer on, as well as maybe like putting a younger singer on as well. And, there wasn't like, oh, you're too old for this type of event. And I wanted to do something because I love what I do with the youth work. I love putting the youth bands on. I really love giving like the youth bands an opportunity. But there is very much like people who, for whatever reason, they maybe played guitar when they were sort of like 16, 17 onwards. But for whatever reason, life got in the way, they gave it up. They get to like 32, even sometimes they get a little bit older. And for whatever reason, something makes them think, do you know what? I've always wanted to do music. I'm going to give it another go. And then they're still sort of in that situation of like, well, look, they need like performance opportunities. They need somewhere to get out there and get on a stage. So that was kind of what I had to tell myself first. Could I make the event work? And then second of all, it was, it was like the owner of the venue going to be like on board with the idea, because she could have just totally have said like, well, look, this is, how is this even going to work? Or this is not something I really want to do. And, there might be a lot of hassle involved with it. But she's been very, very sort of like understanding, and she's loved the idea, and she's kind of just let me kind of like, put all my ideas and plan it all. And she's been like very happy with it so far, and very kind of like on the excitement that it's going to be a good day, which is really, really good. So that was the sort of like getting the venue was kind of like, was the venue going to be on board? And then, of course, doing something outside, is there going to be a way to get power outside? Is getting power outside going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? Is it going to cause a lot of headache just to even get some power outside? Which I got confirmation that, power was not an issue. There was an outside TV, and there is outside power outside in the beer garden. And all I have to do is just run a long heavy duty extension lead to get the power to where I want it to be in the beer garden, which is in a position where the gazebo that I'll talk about a little later on is going to face everybody, and they can see the whole kind of like shingding of what's going on, like when you kind of walk up to the beer garden as well. And then from there on, it was just like social media, what do we call the event, and then kind of like, getting a lineup together, the sound system, how are we even going to like get this to work outside? Are we going to just, are we going to hire a stage? Are we going to have a gazebo? Now, of course, I'm not a multi-millionaire. I'm not somebody who sits here with thousands of pounds that I can just gamble and throw into an event. So I did want to do this kind of like as budget friendly as possible. So going for cheaper options with some things was definitely like on the cards for the event. It wasn't like, we're putting this massive festival on and we can put thousands of pounds into it. It was kind of like, can we get a small PA system outside in a beer garden? Can we get some music playing? And can we get some acoustic singers singing live? And can we create just a small, intermittent, well, I say small, medium size, intermittent sort of atmosphere in the beer garden where people are outside in the sun having a drink in the heat of the height of UK summer before it kind of goes back to the dark nights and the cold and the wet all the time. And could we have that and create that vibe? And up to now, the event's not obviously taken place, but everything has gone pretty smoothly. So, for people that already know, let's get on to the updates, because this is an update. This is not just another stream about what in the beer garden is, but just for people who don't know, bit of context is always good. So, last time I spoke to you, and we'd done a live stream, I was announcing a DJ competition, and we had also just recently dropped the full flyer. The whole lineup had been announced, and we'd got to that stage in the in the promotion and the planning that the whole lineup had been put together. The DJ competition, I'm not going to lie to you, the DJ competition has not gone that well. It's had little to any entries at all, with people telling me they're going to enter, and then I've just not received anything from them. A little bit gutted about that, because it was a perfect chance for an upcoming DJ to send a little mix across and get a performance opportunity on the decks at the after party that would then guarantee them a slot on the main outdoor event the following year, which would have been a really, really cool thing to do. But unfortunately, that didn't, as of now, people are just little to rarely entering it. And I have also put across some, shares of the competition into some music group chats I'm in on Messenger, and sent them to people I know are upcoming DJs that I thought might want to send a mix across, and they just never have. Which just shows there's opportunities there for them, and they're not grasping them and grabbing them. I don't know if I'm also shadow banned as well. So I'm on the verge of just cancelling the competition, because I could just without that stress, I could just just as easy book another DJ to play that midnight slot, unfortunately, without that thing of people well, look, but I wanted to give somebody the opportunity. That was the whole thing. I know a lot of DJs, I know if I went into somebody's inbox and just gave them a set, they'd jump at the chance to play it. But that's not what it's about. And I wanted it to kind of be that well, look, let's get a DJ on that necessarily doesn't get performance opportunities, or they want to get out there a little bit more. And that was just sort of what the whole sort of shindig was about. So anyway, with that being said, I'm on the verge of thinking about cancelling the competition, but I'm just going to leave it running a little bit longer just to see if we do gain a little bit of interest, and then if not, I'm just going to nail a final DJ in, just so we can start rolling and announcing the after party as well, which I've announced a date for it. Obviously, it's the same date as the main event. It's the after party of the main event, but I've announced the venue. I've announced that it's going to start obviously at 10 o'clock when the main party finishes. But I just obviously haven't announced who's playing and stuff like that yet. So I'm a little bit at the moment, I'm a little bit unsure as to who, as to what's going on, but I'm thinking I might do a few changes just to the after party. I'm thinking I might not even play it myself, and I'm just thinking I might put, just book a couple of other DJs that would just want to play it, and then somebody can just literally play my set. as I'll be playing outside, and then I can kind of just, because I'm going to play my outside set. That's a big 2 hour set, so I'm quite happy at doing that. And the event isn't, it's not about me. It's about the other people as well. So if I can just give the slot to two other people, that would be a really, really cool thing. But of course, I'll be like there and I'll be watching over. And if I am needed to go on, then I am obviously there to go on. So that's kind of like where we was at. And that's where I'm at with the DJ comp. Just going to give it a bit longer, maybe another week, just to see like if anybody does enter it. Even if we get 3 entries, like I'll judge the 3 entries that we get and pick a person from that. But currently, right now, people just aren't entering it. I am going to give it another push tomorrow, and I'm going to share it about again. Try and see if anybody is like willing, and if anybody's up for entering it, and anybody wants to give it a go, and stuff like that. And yeah, we'll kind of see what happens. So what else can I update you on? So gazebo, that is something I wanted to update you on. So I put a post on Facebook about a week and a half ago now, I think, or might have even maybe been a little bit longer than that. And basically, I just asked if like anybody knew or had a gazebo that I could just potentially borrow. Now the reason obviously was I want a gazebo for the stage. I want a gazebo that we can use on the day, and it can kind of be the music stage, and when we set the sound system up, it'll be absolutely a cool space for people. They can perform kind of just in the entranceway of the gazebo, and then all the kind of like the mixing desk and the sound technician kind of station can go behind the can go in the gazebo kind of thing. That was kind of like where we was sort of like rolling, and that was kind of where I wanted to roll. So basically a woman got in touch from Bridlington, who I do know who it is, and she did say that she had a gazebo. She's never used it. She's not fully aware of what it looks like because she bought it like a couple of years ago and never used it, and it's just been stored in a shed. And she wasn't sure if it had like sides and stuff on it, so she was going to check it for me, but said I was welcome to have it. So the plan was I was going to go to Brid, I was going to pick it up. She was going to send me some pictures when she'd had a look in the shed and dug it out. It was still in its box and everything, she said. So I thought, yeah, this is a winner. This is exactly what I wanted. The reason why I wanted to go down this route. Now, I could have bought a gazebo, and I was to a degree, I was very happy in doing that, but I just kind of thought to myself, like, I'm going to use that gazebo on that day, and then it's going to get stored away. And I haven't really got space here to store a gazebo. And I could store it at my granddad's, but like some of the sheds are not in the best condition. And I just thought, like, am I going to be in a position where like I go to use the gazebo next year, like, and I won't have used it for like 6, 7, 8 months maybe, and then I get it out, and then for whatever reason, like it's gone, it's gone in a damp shed, and it's just not, or like I bring it somewhere like here, and I'm tidying up, and I'm trying to like, and I've just got this big gazebo here, and I'm like, I wish it wasn't here taking up room. So I thought, just for the sort of like, we're going to essentially we're going to use it for one day, but essentially like we would need it for like maybe 3 days, just like, so there's a day to set it up, there's a day where we're actually using it, and then there's like a day to pack it down, and that is sort of like essentially that's essentially like where we're going to be, kind of like, So anyway, so that was the plan. And then I arrived at the pub where I do my residency. And last weekend, the landlady wasn't there. She wasn't present. So I didn't see her. And then I saw her, and it reminded her, and she actually has a gazebo herself. So the venue has a gazebo. that we can use, which is a really, really cool thing. So I now don't have to worry about that. You know, a white one, and she uses it for various different things. She said like when they need to use one, and she's happy for me to use it. So I'm like really, really pleased about that, because now I don't have to travel anywhere. I don't have to pick one up, and it's literally stored either at the venue across the road from where we're putting the event on, which is where the after party will be held, or it is held at the one across the road, which is really, really cool. And, you know, it just means that all I have to essentially do is, you know, take it over the road or take it out to the beer garden and set it up without having to, like, you know, bring it along with everything else I'm going to be bringing as well. So that was like a really cool thing. So now I know that the gazebo is sorted. I do need to ask her if I can borrow it for potentially a day that is not related to the event. But if I can't, then, you know, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But basically, I saw a post on Facebook, and there was a organisation putting on a fundraising event for a police officer that is battling, unfortunately, stage 4 cancer. And I'm all for helping people. I'm all for getting involved with people. And they were looking for like a DJ. They were looking for someone to like supply like background music throughout the duration of the event, and there's going to be some live singers on and stuff. So I thought as well it's a really good chance to test my system out alongside some live singers and see what the system will sound like, and you know, if it's going to be manageable for me to do the live singers at our event, you know. And if not, then, you know, we're going to run into a big issue, which I don't think we'll have issues. I just want to get that chance to have a test where we can plug, like, because I don't play guitar myself, so I can't plug the guitar in myself and like check it out as such. So I need to basically like be in that environment where someone's going to use it and sing. So I wanted to do that and then test if we could get a good guitar level coming through the speaker, which obviously, you know, it shows, you know, that we can. And then, you know, that would give me a cool idea. And then I got talking to the woman who was kind of putting the event together, and she just ended up, you know, when you kind of feel like, you know, like you're starting to go on that borderline of like asking for too much now. Like you've already kind of like got me down to do this charity event. I've already quoted you a cheaper price because it is for charity. You know, and I don't rip people off, and if so, you know, and it's for a good cause, and I wouldn't want to just like full up bang, you know, charge somebody full whack when it's for that cause. But then they just kept asking like loads of questions, and do you know, will you have, you know, do you have this, and do you have that? And then asked me if like it's going to be outdoors, do I have a gazebo? And I'm like, well, you know, like this has come from like me coming on board to DJ your event, to me like supplying half of the stuff that you're going to need for the event. And that is where I kind of become a little bit not okay. So I knew at that point that I was potentially getting this gazebo originally from Brid. So I was kind of like, well, you know, I'm potentially getting a gazebo for something else. You know, so I'll like, you know, I will be able to see, and if I get it all right, I might be able to bring it to your event. Um, but then she was asking, like, you know, can singers plug into your sound system? And, you know, and I was just thinking, like, you're not really prepared with this event, are you? Like, you know, like, I thought I was just coming on board to, like, DJ what was an already kind of, like, you know, in the planning stages event. You know, I was kind of expecting that this event was already sort of like underway, and they had like, you know, singers booked, and there was a sound engineer, and you know, it was a proper thing where, you know, there was a sound guy and there was a system already there. And it kind of sounds to me like there isn't really any of that, and they've kind of like booked some people to do some singing without even like guaranteeing they have a sound system, which is not always a good sign. So, of course, I'm bringing my system, and then because it gave me the opportunity to test out, putting some live singers through my PA system. I just kind of thought like, let's see, what it's going to sound like. So that was kind of like a pretty cool thing for me. So I get to test that out, which is really really cool. So that's kind of like a good thing on that thing. So I need to see now if I can borrow this gazebo from the pub, and then if I can't borrow it from the pub, because obviously, like, I'm using it for something that's not related to the pub. Then basically, then I'll just, it's out of my hands. Like it's not really up to me to supply the gazebo. So I'll help where I can, but then I'm just gonna kind of be like, well, look, I can't get a gazebo. I do apologise. So that's where we are with that. The next thing I want to get on to talking about is pets. Now, believe it or not, this is something that I never even thought of. When I was in the planning stages of this event, like I was thinking of so many different things. And I was actually patting myself on the back and thinking, like, you're doing good here. Like, you've actually thought of a lot of stuff, and I thought I'm actually thinking this through quite, professionally. And I thought I'm quite proud of myself, how far I've come. But I never thought about pets. And recently, over the past couple of weeks, I've had people that have either messaged or left a comment asking if dogs are allowed. And of course, like, I was a little bit unsure. It wasn't something I was like, I was kind of like, I thought like dogs would be allowed, but I wasn't certain if they'd be allowed. Now, I know that when I've DJ'd in the book or on a weekend, people have brought a dog into the book and the dog has been welcome into the book. And I do know that on the bar they do keep dog biscuits, and they do sometimes put a bowl down for a dog as well. So I do know that for the most part dogs are allowed in there. But I just thought, like, with it being a loud event, with there being live music, with there being like quite what I'd say maybe a little bit more of a busy atmosphere, as opposed to like people just sitting in the local having a few drinks. I thought maybe it might, would it be a little bit distressing to dogs, and you've constantly got people like standing up, sitting down, people dancing around, people sort of walking about, people having a few drinks that could then potentially like accidentally stand on a dog's paw or catch the tail. So I just wanted to like clarify with the landlady, if we could obviously like have dogs just in case, like, there was like, oh, with it being a busy event, let's maybe not have dogs or something. But she was like, of course, she just said make sure they're on leads. So I've done a public social media post announcement just to say that dogs will be allowed, because like, it just saved me like replying to individual people. It's there on the page. Dogs are welcome, and I'm pretty happy with that dogs are welcome. I might even print a sign out that will just say on the day that dogs are welcome, or I can like try and get some printed out stuff to like maybe post around, just say that dogs are welcome, so people know that obviously dogs are welcome. So that was obviously like the kind of like the main sort of like next thing. So what is next? What is like within like the weeks to come then? What are the weeks to come looking like? So what I actually need to do is I do need to buy a long extension lead, like a heavy duty 25 meter is what I got recommended through like asking online through like AI, and like what would be the best sort of like possible way to do it. and they said that like a 25-meter lead would be good just to be safe, and I'm kind of happy to do that. I would risk it at 20 meters, but I think 25 meters you are just being a little bit safe, and then like if you do need to move stuff, like you're not worrying about pulling on the wire as well. So I've had a look around in some shops, because like B&M, they do the heavy duty wires, but they only, that I've seen in the shop, I've only seen like 10 meters and 15 meters, which I just don't think will be long enough, unfortunately, for what I want to do, and I don't want to be pulling on any wires. So I would rather just, like, I'll probably look online, and you can probably get them online, heavy duty 25 meter extension leads, and then I can just get them, and literally, I can get one. And then as far as the other extension sockets go, they'll just be like your normal trailing socket that I'll just plug into the extension, and basically they'll just have like the normal, like I've got one down here, it's got 6 plugs on it. I'll probably use something like that, and then I'll just take a couple of spare. I've got some spare white ones that I'll probably just take as well, and that'll just pretty much be it, just so we have a good bit of length on the cable. We've got a few extra plugs if we need it, and then we can just ensure that everything we're going to plug in, there is a space for it. And what I also want to ensure as well is like my 10-channel mic mixer, for example, doesn't have the longest lead on it for like the mains plug. So like that needs to be, ideally, it needs to be basically like that needs to be like near the plug socket, so like like we're not having to stretch the wire for it. So that is pretty much what's going down. And I have also just had I've just had another warning on the social media. So apparently your page recommendations are suspended. Our technology detected that your page is not following the recommended guidelines. Find out more. So I had this before. And basically, so your page is not following our rules. We stop suggesting pages when they don't meet our guidelines. See the guideline. So our recommendation guideline is designed to maintain higher standards. Okay, so I got this a little while ago, which is kind of what's okay. I think yeah, I had this a while ago where they did the same thing, and I basically appealed it. I basically appealed, and basically they accepted that they were wrong. I think the only thing that I can think of is that it's like, because it's the page is called In the Beer Garden, that it is like basically promote, like it fit, like I think the Facebook algorithms are thinking that it's basically, I think they're thinking that it's like a page promoting alcohol, and then it's not a page promoting kind of like a music festival, because it just says In the Beer Garden. So what I think I am going to do is I'm going to change the page name to In the Beer Garden music events, because I want people to kind of more know that this is kind of like where we're at, because I think people who maybe don't know about the event going on, and they're just seeing the beer garden, they're just thinking like beer and a garden. So like if it does say like In the Beer Garden music events, then people will instantly know like it's a music event in a beer garden. So I think I'm gonna do that. That is probably what I'm gonna do. So that might be like something I do tomorrow, and yeah, I think that is going to kind of like, I think that is going to kind of be like the thing of what I do, just because, like I say, it's not really, yeah, like it just seems to be weird, and it's not recommending my page now. Like it's stopped doing that. So it's now in review. Most people hear back in less than 7 days, but it can take longer. So last time I got 2 reviews, 2 suspensions. One that it was not going to show content to people under the age of 18, I think. And then the other one was the same one as what I've just appealed now. I appealed them both, and one of them, which I think was this one I've just appealed now, that came back literally in like 10-15 minutes, and then the other one took a little longer, but it did eventually come back. And yeah, it's just a bit mad. So, but yeah, apparently my page is no longer. Apparently my page is no longer available for recommendations. So we'll just see what happens. I'm a bit unsure as to like what's gonna happen. Hopefully, like they just appeal it, because like now my page isn't going to be recommended. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, so yeah, so the next port of call is to get the extension leads. That is something that I need to buy. And then I need to start really going to the beer garden itself and making a plan of where things are going to go, how things are going to kind of like lay out, and just essentially have a look around where I'm actually going to set things up. And I just want to basically make sure. I did have a brief look, and I know like roughly where I want the music stage and stuff, but I just want to make sure and have a good look, and just kind of like start sort of making a really good plan where everything is like essentially going to go. And you know, maybe just a nice way that we might be able to like maybe move the tables, because there's a couple of tables that I need to move when we do set the gazebo up as well, because if I don't move them, they're just going to block the gazebo. And then I also want that little like dance floor area and stuff like that. So that's kind of my next port of call. And then I'm going to start. I've already kind of sort of started doing it, but making some signs that I'm going to put up around the beer garden, which are just going to kind of say like, you know, the beer garden, the bar's this way, the toilets are this way, just some general stuff. I want to start getting a running order, and I've like pretty much nailed. I think I've pretty much got the whole running order more or less confirmed, because one act got in touch just to basically say, like to ask what time they would be playing, because they were going on to another gig, and because I hadn't really gone too far into the planning of the schedule, they were kind of like the first people to ask. So I told them what I'd like roughly wrote down, and then they asked if they could just go earlier, and all I had to like really essentially do was just like swap somebody around. And then I just thought, let's have a little, just a quick rejig of it, and see sort of roughly how it's going to go. And then literally from that way on, that would be like, you know, really cool. So I think there's just one artist left that I haven't given their set time to, and I need to get in touch just to see if they're cool with it. But they're going to kind of have to be now, because everybody else has kind of accepted their time. But I think, you know, it should be all cool. It should be all gravy. Oh, and one of the acts also did ask if there was now going to be a piano there, which I was, you know, a bit like, no, unfortunately not. One of the acts who was performing for the first time plays a song on piano, and they did a school performance like a couple of days ago. Might have even been yesterday. And anyway, played the piano in the school performance, and then said that she'd love to do that song at the event. and unfortunately, I don't have a piano. Now they said that they do have a small keyboard that they could bring, but they'd need a table for it. I can supply a table, no problem. My only issue is what powers this keyboard, because is it a keyboard like a MIDI one that then goes to something like GarageBand? Is it something that like connects to a laptop? You know, how are we going to set this how are we going to set this keyboard up kind of thing? So I'm a little bit like, I'm going to need to know what the keyboard is and how it like sets up, which, once I know that, I will know like whether potentially we can get it to work or not. Do I want to take the risk and mess up all the sound when I just wanted it to be like pretty much as simple as let's plug the guitar in, that is kind of like something that I want to do. Make sure that everything is going to work well and everything is going to work good. So there we go. That's that. So yeah, so we're going to start planning the actual site build of how the site is going to transform into what is in the beer garden. Check if there's like any other things that I am going to need. I was debating on like whether to have some form of like railing, some form of barrier, some form that would just kind of like block off the artist, kind of where the artist performs, to kind of where the thingy is, where the where the general public are. But I'm not sure about that yet. I'm a little bit like, but I might get some form of barrier. If not, I'll just have it open, and it shouldn't obviously be too bad. And I guess we'll just kind of see in that sense sort of like what happens. But like, that was kind of like the main thing, like to whether we're going to need to do that or not. And then just like I say, if we're gonna have to move 2 benches, where we're gonna move them to, which I think they'll go onto some grass just to the side. But again, how heavy are these benches? Are they easy to move? Have they been kind of like firmly placed into the ground? Is that going to cause an issue itself? So that is essentially, and I'll work with the venue owner and just say, look, this is where I'm kind of planning to put things. If the push comes to the shove and I can't put the gazebo where I wanted to put it, and I do have to put it like among another wall, like I will do that. However, I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. If I could help it, I'd love to put it where I want to put it. Just because when you walk in to the beer garden, like, you get that kind of like, that thing of like, you see it, you're walking up, you see it in the distance. You don't walk up and then it's around the corner, that's kind of not what I wanted. So anyway, with that being said, that's kind of where we are with that. And then I want to film like some promotional videos around in the beer garden as well, and just show like everybody like to where everything is going to be, and stuff like that. And it should hopefully be a really, really cool day. So with that being said, let's go get it. Let's absolutely smash it, and I will keep you posted on the future of In the Beer Garden, what's happening with it, the progress, and hopefully we just pull off an absolutely sick day. So thank you for sticking with me. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you soon. It's going up for midnight. And part of me wanted